evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to Kai Kai's Demos Dinner. And of course, tonight is it's the last evening of the season, but not the least, it's the best chefs around. So we have tonight our executive chef, Aaron Black from Jusco and Tequesta. He used to be at PB Catch, and now he took over Jusco and he revamped it. If you haven't been there, it's worth it, all right? And his wife, Sarah Black, she's the chef at Mariner Sand. So she's a pastry chef, and you're in for a surprise with Sarah. So if you don't know Sarah, she used to be at the regional with Lindsay Audrey for many, many years. So both of them were fantastic chefs, and she even got nominated for James Beard, isn't it?
Lindsay, yeah.
Yeah. So enjoy your evening tonight, and now I'll let you speak with Sarah.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. We actually look forward to doing this event every year. It's a lot of fun, and Diane and Carl are really great. I come out to the farm every Saturday now, bring my daughter. She's 3, so she's at home with Grandma tonight. So Grandma's happy that we're doing the event because she gets to spend the time with her granddaughter. So we're gonna get started. The first thing that we're gonna do tonight is focaccia. It's a really easy bread. It's really great for beginners. And there's not a whole lot of mixing. It's not overly complicated. It's really about patience. And it's got 3 simple ingredients: flour, water, yeast, salt, and then you can do whatever toppings you'd like on it. It's really great for sandwiches. We did egg sandwiches on it the other day for breakfast, and it was really great. You can do it thinner and make a pizza with it. And we've used some of the vegetables that Diane had here this summer. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is add your flour. And as I said, it's super simple. And I would use AP flour. If you have bread flour, you can use that too. Bread flour just absorbs a lot more water than AP flour does, and it also gives a lot more gluten. So a lot of times bread flour, the more you mix it, the more glutinous it's going to get and the tougher it's going to get. But AP flour is great for this. That's what I've used. So salt, yeast, and then you're going to mix that up just a little bit because you really don't want the yeast and the salt to kind of clump up, so you want it blended in with your flour. And this dough is actually going to ferment in the fridge. Since you add the water, you can just dump it all in. And your water is going to be warm. So it's very important that your water is not too hot. If it is too hot, if you stick your finger in and you're like, ooh, that's hot, cool it down. Because the hotter the water is, it's going to kill your yeast. So yeast, they're live creatures. I don't know if creatures is the right word, but they're live. They're little live organisms, yes. And they actually will feed off of sugar. So this bread has no sugar. And as I said, you're going to ferment it in the fridge. And so what happens when you ferment it in the fridge is that it's kind of slow, so the yeast start breaking down the flour. And what happens when they break down the flour is they're eating the sugar, because sugar comes from the flour, because flour is carbohydrates, right? So when you break it down, it becomes a sugar. So that's where they get their sugar from. And that's where the gases, as they eat that, that's where the gases form, and you get all these bubbles, and that's what makes your bread really light and fluffy. So as you can see, this becomes just kind of like a sticky mess. You can use your hands if you want. My daughter actually helped me make the sample recipe. I was trying at home, and she was just into it. She got really excited. It was definitely a good sensory experience for her. So once it's all mixed, you're going to pour some olive oil over the top, and it's important to do this because you don't want it to form a crust in the fridge. So this is going to just kind of seal that off. And then what you're going to do is put plastic wrap over it, or a lid if your bowl has a lid. And you're going to stick this in the fridge. And this can be left in the fridge for up to 2 days. So a minimum of 12 hours. Or up to 2 days. And if you're really in a pinch, you can actually do it on your counter. Just leave it out for a couple hours, and it's going to proof there. If you're like, oh man, I should have done that yesterday, you can do it in the morning. So what you're going to do, like I said, cover it, put it in the fridge. You're going to let it proof. I did 24 hours on mine, so I'm going to show you what it looks like when it comes out. So this one has got a lot of bubbles in it, and you're going to see. So this is what it's going to look like, and I don't know if you all can see that, but it's really like super bubbly and airy. And then what you're going to do is, as I said, this is just such a simple bread recipe. You're just going to take your spatula and you're just going to fold it into itself. And what's happening is you're breaking down, you're allowing all those bubbles to come out, and then it's going to proof a second time, and it's going to get really bubbly again. So you're basically expelling those gases so that it can actually do the same process all over. So once you break all those bubbles down, if you've got a 9x13, you can do it in that, or you can do it in 2 rounds is really great. If you wanted to do like pizza or something along those lines, you could spread it thinner. But make sure if your pan is not a really good nonstick, what I would do is like just take your butter and give a nice smear of butter like you would if you were doing a cake. And then a little bit of olive oil. And the olive oil is great in there too because it really makes the bottom nice and crispy. So then after you pour it in your pan, you're going to cover it and do the same thing and let it proof on your counter. Depending on how hot your kitchen is, I'd say between 2 to 4 hours. It really depends on your kitchen. And another thing, if you're in a hurry, you can turn your oven on and kind of set it on top of the oven, and that heat's going to help it proof a little bit faster. So this one now, as you can see, has gotten really, like if you touch it, you can see it's very light and airy. And that's what you're really looking for because it's going to create all these pockets, and that's what gives you a really nice tender dough. So for this one, we've done some cheese. I'd put your cheese on first because then you're going to put all your vegetables, and if you put the cheese on last, the cheese will burn in the oven. So just kind of sprinkle your cheese on there. We've got a little bit of fontina and mozzarella. You could use Havarti. If you don't like cheese, you don't have to put cheese on. It's like a blank canvas. And then we've got some really nice tomatoes that we've gotten from Diane. I'm just going to sprinkle those on as well. I've seen people use asparagus, and you can get crafty and make pretty decorations and make it really pretty for a centerpiece if you're doing it for Thanksgiving or something. Be really nice. Let's get all those. And we put a little bit of artichokes in it tonight. And we're actually serving it with an artichoke butter. My husband, they did, what is it? You did marinated artichoke butter?
We got in a case of fresh artichokes, cleaned them up, and then we confit them in butter like a week ago. Really slow temp for probably like 2 hours, maybe like 250 degrees or a little less. And then we just let them sit in the butter.
Clarified? No, just regular.
Whole butter. Just a nice low moisture whole butter like Plugra. And then we spun that with roasted garlic. And then we added it to more whole butter that we whipped. So it was super light. We mixed in that puree. And then we roasted more artichokes and cut those up so there's nice big chunks in there. And a little bit of fine herbs. And fine herbs is parsley, chives, tarragon, and chervil. A little salt, little black pepper.
Thank you. So now you know what you're going to have your focaccia with this evening. So the artichokes, and then I've got some spring onions that I had left from Diane that I got at the market a couple weeks ago. Some shaved garlic we've just put in there. Herbs, rosemary is the traditional one that you see on focaccia. I tend to not go too heavy with rosemary. It starts to taste like a Christmas tree to me. I don't know. But sage would be really great. Thyme. You could do dill. But we've got a little bit here, just a little bit of rosemary that we've chopped up. And then what you're going to do is more olive oil, because you can never have enough olive oil on focaccia. So then you're going to just drizzle a bunch of that on. Nice, good, heavy drizzle. That gives it a nice crispy crust, too. And then we've got some nice flaky sea salt. We're fans of Maldon. We like to use that one. Any sea salt would do, but this one's really great. Just a nice sprinkle of that on there. And then comes more of the fun part after this. So then, once you get all that in there, the biggest thing that you see is everyone starts to stick their fingers in it. My daughter had fun with that also. You're just going to go in, and what you're doing is kind of pushing all those goodies down into it so they can kind of bake in there. And then this kind of like just makes more of the bubbles come out. So then pop this in your oven, 425. If you have a convection oven, I'd watch it a little bit closer. But just a regular oven that's not convection, it took about 50 minutes at my house to bake. So once it comes out, you can always check it. Like I said, if you have a convection, maybe check it at 25, 30 minutes. And you can just kind of lift up the bottom, and you can see you really want that bottom to be kind of nice and golden brown. So just get a little spatula and lift it up and look underneath it. And then this is what your finished product will look like. And then we'll cut into it and see. If you wanted it thicker, you could definitely do 1.5 times the recipe and put it in here, and you'll have a really nice thick bread. But you've got some really nice little bubbles in there, and it's almost got like a creamy texture to it. Because there is such a high ratio of water to here, it's really kind of a soft, nice dough. So that's it for this. Do you guys have any questions on any of the recipe? No? Great. Sounds good. So we've got some here for you we're going to serve. So enjoy. Thank you.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the next dish. We're going to do a roasted oyster with ajika butter. I wanted to talk about the ajika butter a little bit. Ajika is an Eastern European condiment, and it's kind of got a cool flavor profile. It's bell peppers, carrots, and apples, and we brunoise those, which is a really fine dice, and then we sweat it in a pan with French curry that's called vadouvan. So that combination of fruits and vegetables kind of gives it like a chutney type of flavor profile, and then we add that we make a compound butter out of it. So we soften whole butter, like a nice one like Plugra or Kerrygold, something like that. And then you put it in your mixer with a paddle, and you just let it whip until it starts getting air into it. Except in Florida, it's so humid and hot here. If it starts getting soft and you see it stop rising, just put a bowl of ice underneath your mixing bowl, and that'll cool the edges and it'll puff up. Because you want it to be light, so when it melts, it becomes foamy and very subtle and light and delicate. And we pop the oysters open, and we just put the butter on it, making sure not to lose the liquor of the oyster, because that's really the gold. That's the good stuff. You can do these in your oven. You can do them in the broiler. We do them in the wood-fired oven at Josco, so it's like 700 degrees, which is a great temperature for foaming the butter and keeping the oyster just barely cooked, just lightly cooked. You can also do them on your grill at home, and I really like this because the little bit of butter that comes over the side of the oyster kind of smokes it. It gives it like a little smoky, buttery flavor, and that's probably my favorite way. But when you're doing it 120 oysters, it's tough to do on the grill. So we went convection oven today. For the demo, I wanted to show you guys how to open an oyster. Like when I worked at PB Cash, we would open thousands a day, and for happy hour, it was crazy. I have scars all up here. So I learned some things the hard way. So I like using this style knife for this size oyster. It's a Wiano oyster. They're from like Nantucket Sound, I think. But this is a really great farm. Like I think you can get these at Cod and Capers on their retail store. But this farm does such an amazing job. It's the shells, the way they handle them. Like when you take an oyster and it's in the box when you're growing it on the farm and you shake it, it stresses the oyster and you start to get a deep cup. And the deep cup is great because you get a medium-sized oyster with a lot of liquor and a nice plump oyster in there. They also do things to keep the shells from getting crumbly. And I don't know exactly how they do this, but it's great. Because if you've ever opened a crumbly oyster, it's terrible. Like you start to get in there and the whole back falls off. And you're like, oh, what do I do now? I don't even know. Steam them open. I don't know. But there's a couple tricks to it. So you see the oyster here, top. That's the best place to go in is on the back. The speed guys go in from the side. I never really figured that out. I like going in from the back. So when you're taking your knife, and I like the little curved tip, you can get straight ones too, but I think they're more for blue points and bigger oysters because you got to really torque on those. But you don't ever want to force it in because you don't need to. There's a little crack back here, and you kind of feel that, and you just wiggle it until you get under the top. So I'm not really putting any force on this at all. And then you just give it a little twist, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but that just comes away from the edge right there, and that's all you need because the foot is right here on every oyster ever born on this planet. So all you have to do is run your knife right along that spot, and it's done. It comes right off. But so the important part of that is you're not digging around and breaking up the oyster, so it looks like an oyster. I want to serve an oyster that looks like an oyster. And when you're serving these at home, and on more wild oysters, like after you pop that back, you can wipe your knife because there might be a little mud right there, and you don't want to share that with the rest of the oyster. And then I like to take my finger and run it down the sides like this, and just make sure that there's no shell fragments or grit or pearls, just in case. I've literally never found a pearl in my entire life. But so, and then if you're opening them at your house and you want to do it early so that you can participate in cocktail hour, which is important, you stop right here. And if you have a muddy oyster or a dirty oyster, pour it out and rinse it and leave it on that bottom foot and just set it to the side, and in like 10 minutes it'll re-wet itself. It's perfection. Like really high-end oyster houses do that for every oyster, so you have pure, perfect liquor every time. And then to eat it, you just take off the bottom foot so it slides out, and you're done. But so I really wanted to show you guys that because I think a lot of people get home and they just torque on this, and that's exactly how you get hurt and exactly how you break the shells. Enjoy the Ajika butter, roasted Wiana oyster, and we just put a little side salad of field greens with it. Thank you. The next dish is one of my favorites at Josco, at the garden. We do kind of a variation of a bolognese. We do a white lamb bolognese. No tomato in that, and then we kind of did a fusion of low country and Italian. So we use, for the mirepoix, for where you would normally use carrot, onion, and celery, we use white onion, celery, and green peppers because I kind of like that grassy flavor. It just makes sense to me with lamb. We also use herbs de Provence, so you've got a little lavender in there and a little rosemary, a little thyme. We use farmlands herbs de Provence. It's a really nice blend. Then we cook it down with creme fraiche and milk really slowly. So we kind of make patties with the ground lamb and cook them without color because we want it to be white. And the reason we make patties is as you slowly cook it, as you can tell when it's done when they're completely broken up and they're really fine and nice. It's like a really old school trick, but it helps you know when it's the perfect tenderness because like when you're cooking meatballs at home, if you cook them for an hour and a half, they're wonderful grandma meatballs. And if you cook them for half an hour, they're like hamburger meatballs. And they're weird, and nobody likes them. Anyway, I think one of the things that really pulls the dish together is we get a goat curd from Montchev, and it's literally just the skim off the top. There's nothing added to it. It's very pure, and it adds a really nice grassy creaminess, and it has a little acidity to it too, so it helps to balance the richness of that bolognese. And I wanted to show you how we make the puree, or the crema, I guess you might call it, because a lot of recipes will tell you to put the heavy cream in and blitz it until it starts to have some body, starts to hold some of that air. And I always think that's a mistake, because then when you add your other ingredients, whether it's this goat curd, or I use this technique a lot to do avocados, because then like you can make a salad and you just spread the avocado puree on the bottom, salad on top. It's wonderful, you get a little avocado on every bite. But if you do the cream first and you don't get it smooth enough, because like you have heavy cream, then you have whipped cream, then you have butter. So if you're getting close to whipped cream and you add your stuff and you can't get it smooth enough in time, it turns to butter and it breaks, and it's a terrible disaster. So if you spin your stuff first and then add the cream slowly, you can get exactly the consistency that you want. Really smooth. You can make a quenelle with 2 spoons. We're going to pipe them tonight so that we're not all over here quenelling goat cheese for the top. That would be goofy. But anyway, I'll get this started. And if you were doing avocados, I cut them in half, cut them in chunks, and put them in here so they spin fast, because I don't want to create heat from the friction of the blade. And same with cheese. So I'm just going to get it moving around a little bit. And then I'm going to add my cream until it's the perfect consistency. And I really don't like the on-off button on these machines. I like the pulse button. So I don't know if you can see the top. It's kind of going around as a mass right now. And as I add the cream and it gets to the right consistency, it'll just go flat. And then you've got it perfect. Pretty close right there. And you can also make butter with this, so you got to keep your eye on that. So that's pretty good right there. I don't think I need any more. And then you just pop this out, make a quick quenelle, and it goes right on top of your pasta, which you guys are going to get in a little floret, and you let that mix in, and it's the acidity versus the richness. And if Sarah did the quenelles, they'd be beautiful. I'm not that great at quenelles, like her. So I guess we're going to put this together and get it out to you. So enjoy.
Thank you. So I hope you're not too full yet, because now we have dessert. So dessert, in my opinion, is the best part. I would eat it first. It's probably not a good idea, because then I won't get to enjoy my husband's cooking, because I'll be too full. So tonight we're doing a chocolate mousse. It's a very simple chocolate mousse recipe. I wanted to give you guys something that you could do at home, and then also it's kind of an open canvas, just like the focaccia, so you can put it with different sauces. You can layer it and make parfaits. You can add cake to it. So it is a gluten-free item too, so if you guys are not into bread, we had the bread in the beginning, but now there's no flour or anything in this one. So tonight we've got the chocolate mousse. It's got a little bit of strawberry jam in the bottom. I just took some really nice Florida strawberries, cooked them down with some sugar, and just made like a nice compote and put on the bottom. When you guys have it, you'll see. And then on top, I did it with some whipped cream and then candied calamandan. Liz was asking what calamandan are. So if any of you Floridians know, they're the little sour oranges that you've seen. My mom has a tree at her house, and the thing was loaded last year. So I took them all and blanched them, and it was a lot of work because they are so small and very seedy. But if you cut them and blanch them in water and then put them in a simple syrup and cook them down really low, it takes a couple hours, and you have to really watch it. But they'll candy, and what happens is all the water kind of evaporates, and the juice comes out of the calamandan, and it kind of cooks itself in this like orange sugary syrup, so you get a really nice candied rind that you can use for garnish and stuff. So that's a great way to use that fruit if you guys have one of those trees, because the fruit itself is so sour. But the rind is really good, and it's very floral, so it's really nice to combine the two. So on to the mousse. So what we've got is some dark chocolate, 64%. It's kind of a dark. You can use whatever you can find at the grocery store or deli, just whatever you can find. We've got some cocoa berry here, sugar, and egg yolks, and then a little bit of cream and milk in the pot. So we're going to make an anglaise with the yolks and the sugar and the... So an anglaise is a really simple sauce as well. It's used in a lot of things. It's kind of what they use to make ice cream. Creme brulee is egg yolks and sugar. Pastries, a lot of the same ingredients, just used in different ways, and you can make a lot of different things with the same ingredients, which is kind of cool. So here we've got a little bit of cream and milk. And then we're going to do the sugar and the yolks. And when you do the sugar and the yolks, you really want to make sure you whisk it together as soon as you add the yolks in, because the sugar will start to cook your yolks, and you'll get these like little weird clumps. Nobody wants to eat cooked egg yolks in your mousse. That's just weird. So just whisk it all together. I'm just going to set that aside. And then you've got your chocolate here. So you're going to wait, and what you want to do when this cream gets hot is you're going to temper a little bit in, because if you dump all of this right in, it's kind of the same thing. You're going to cook your yolks too fast. So you really want to do it kind of slow, and you're going to bring the temperature of your egg yolks up closer to what the temperature of your milk is, so that it's not a shock when you add it all back together. And then we're going to pour it over this as well. So also, one of the first things you want to do before you start this is you're going to fold in whipped cream at the end. And the whipped cream, you want it to be soft peaks. So when you say soft peaks, you can kind of see here that it's pretty soft. The stiffer it is, the more you're going to have to fold it in, and you're going to lose a lot of the volume that you've added to this cream, and it's also going to cause it to kind of break, because the more you mix it, the more it's just going to, the makeup of it, it just breaks down. It's not super great. So you really want to make it nice and soft. So I'm going to wait. We're at the mercy of the burner right now. So it's starting to get a little bit hot. I can see the steam coming. So what you're going to do is just pour just a little bit in and kind of whisk at the same time, if you can. It's a little bit tricky. You can do a little towel around there so the towel holds the bowl, and that'll help. It's also kind of just to break that up and make it a little bit more liquid, so you can see that it's getting kind of liquefied there. If you don't have enough heavy cream for the whipped cream and the sauce, you could use all milk. That would be fine. So now we're getting a nice simmer there. So we're going to just dump this in. And as you're dumping it in, you want to whisk the whole time, because it will start to cook on the bottom very fast. This is a very small amount. And when you do an anglaise, you're going to see it's going to get a little bit thicker. It's what they call nappe. It's what they taught us in culinary school. If you stick a spoon in and run your finger along it, it'll leave a line, and you'll be able to see the line, and that's what they tell you it's done, and it's nappe. So you can see it's starting to get a little bit thicker. That's probably pretty good. You don't want to go too far, because you'll have scrambled eggs. And then I always strain it just to be on the safe side. You don't get any of the whites that have been stuck in there or any of that. See, I went a little bit too far. Just a little bit of scrambled egg there. So you're just going to strain that in right over your chocolate. And then you're going to whisk this all together. Because it is such a small amount, if your chocolate, you can pop it in the microwave for a couple of seconds just to soften it up so it melts a little bit faster. Because sometimes it's not quite hot enough to melt all your little pistils that are in there. You really don't want big chunks, so you want to make sure that if you buy a bar of chocolate to use for this, or you have something at home, you want to chop it so the pieces are smaller to make sure that it melts. It's just all until that's kind of together. You're not invited. Go away. So then what you're going to do is take this nice softened whipped cream, and you're going to dump it. You can dump it all right in there. Hey, come on. And then you're going to fold it. So when you're folding, you want to go around the sides and come up through the middle. It's kind of down around like this. And it's going to be kind of soft. And that's okay, because then when you put it in your vessels or your glass, it's going to give you a nice flat layer. Sometimes it's thick too. It just kind of depends on your temperature. And if it is, that's okay too. It'll still set up. And this, when you pour it into your glass or whatever vessel you're going to use, you can put it in the fridge for a couple hours. It'll set up. This is really great too if you're doing cakes. Sometimes you get some little clumps in there, the whipped cream clumps. So you can kind of see if the whipped cream's too thick. You'll get clumps in there, and you can just take a whisk and kind of fold it in. It'll break up those clumps really nice. But again, being gentle, because if you whip it, it's essentially you're taking the cream and turning it to butter, because there's so much fat in there. Maybe I shouldn't say that. So there's your mousse, and then, as I said, you can put it in little glasses. If you have some really pretty little wine glasses you want to use, you could do like a big bowl and have cake and make like a layered parfait. You could put this in the fridge just like this, a nice big bowl, and let it set up for a couple hours or overnight. And if you're doing a layered cake and you wanted to fill it with something, you could certainly use this as a filling. Obviously, because it is mousse, it would have to be something that would stay refrigerated. I wouldn't put it out on display. You'll have a mess. But that's it, and it's a really great recipe. If you don't have a dark chocolate and you have a milk chocolate, you can certainly use that. I'd probably add just a little bit more chocolate because the milk chocolate is a little bit of a softer chocolate. But you could certainly swap it out for milk chocolate if you prefer that. And that's it. So thank you so much. Oh, one more thing I was going to show you. So this is the focaccia, actually, that I did the demo, and we baked it in the back. So with the convection of it, it did bake a lot faster. And those of you that aren't familiar with convection versus like your regular home oven, the convection has air that circulates in there. So the air really gives it that, it kind of creates a steam, and it like evaporates all the water, and that's what gives your bread or your cakes or your muffins or whatever you're making a really nice rise. So there is a big difference in the type of oven, and if they tell you to put it in a convection oven, it will make a difference. So this one is a little bit thinner, and this one did rise just a little bit more with the addition of the convection from the air from the oven. So again, thank you. We really hope you all have enjoyed it, and we would love to come back out at some point, I'm sure. So thank you.
Again, chef and both chefs, thank you for coming. It's always a pleasure seeing both of you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having us, and thank everyone for coming out on this beautiful night.